An emergency UN Security Council meeting has been called to discuss Ukrainian humanitarian situation today. The meeting has been called by the United States of America, the UK, France, Albania, Ireland and Norway. And in more breaking news update, in a fresh attack on Vladimir Putin, US President Joe Biden has called him a war criminal. Whitehouse has said that Biden was speaking from his heart when he called Putin a war criminal, and that US State Department has an ongoing legal process.
Adding that Biden was reacting to the images of Putin's barbaric actions, Kremlin was quick to hit back, saying Biden's comments on Putin are unacceptable and unforgivable.
I think he is a war criminal.
Will you be meeting with him?
Now, US President Joe Biden has announced fresh military and security aid to war-torn Ukraine. The $350 million aid includes anti-air systems, anti-tank weapons, transport helicopters, armed patrol boats, radar systems, among other security weapons.
In fact, longer-range anti-aircraft weapons are also part of the US's aid to Ukraine.
An additional $800 million in assistance. That brings the total of new U.S. security assistance to Ukraine to $1 billion just this week. These are direct transfers of equipment from our Department of Defense to the Ukrainian military to help them as they fight against this invasion. And I thank the Congress for appropriating these funds. This new package on its own is going to provide unprecedented assistance to Ukraine. It includes 800 anti-aircraft systems to make sure the Ukrainian military can continue to stop the planes and helicopters that have been attacking their people and to defend their Ukrainian airspace. And at the request of President Zelensky, we have identified and are helping Ukraine acquire additional longer-range anti-aircraft systems and the munitions for those systems. Our new assistance package also includes 9,000 anti-armor systems. These are portable, high accuracy shoulder-mounted missiles that the Ukrainian forces have been using with great effect to destroy invading tanks and armored vehicles.
And the International Court of Justice has ordered Russia to immediately stop the hostilities against Ukraine. Ukraine has in fact had asked the UN court to intervene 2 weeks ago, and it had argued that Russia had falsely accused Ukraine of genocide and used that as a pretext for the ongoing invasion.
In fact, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tweeted that Ukraine has gained a complete victory in its case against Russia and added that the order is binding under international law.
The Russian Federation shall immediately suspend the military operations that it commenced on 24 February 2022 in the territory of Ukraine. The Russian Federation shall ensure that any military or irregular armed units which may be directed or supported by it, as well as any organizations and persons which may be subject to its control or direction, take no steps in furtherance of the military operations referred to in point 1 above.
In fact, talks of war ending between Ukraine and Russia are gaining ground, but civilian casualties continue to mount. A theater in Mariupol was reportedly bombed by Russia, where civilians were taking shelter.
In fact, the death count is yet to be known, but is feared to be very high. However, Russia has denied targeting civilians. It rather accused a far-right Ukrainian militia of blowing up the theater. Meanwhile, in another horrific attack, U.S. Embassy in capital Kyiv claimed that several people queuing up for bread in northern city of Chernihiv were shot dead by Russian troops.
And so we enter week 4 of a war that Russia, despite all their bold claims that the campaign is going exactly according to plan, surely did not expect to see. By all accounts, they'd anticipated a swift decisive and unopposed victory, much in the vein of their 2008 invasion of Georgia or 2014 of the Crimean Peninsula. Instead, it seems they massively overestimated their own military and logistical supply capabilities and underestimated the West's resolve, both in terms of military aid and economic sanctions, not to mention, of course, the phenomenally valiant rearguard action of the Ukrainian military and its volunteer forces. So Russia reverts to what it does best, bombing innocent civilians. Tales of an artillery strike outside a bakery in the northern town of Chernihiv, which cost 10 civilian lives, tug at the heartstrings, even within the context of this merciless bloodbath. The bombing of a television tower in the town of Vinnytsia seems a strange throwback to a previous era of information war. Many Ukrainians still get their news principally through the airways. Perhaps this an indication that President Zelensky's rousing speeches to his people are starting to grate on the nerves of the Russian propaganda machine.
Talking about rousing speech, and a standing ovation over a Zoom call, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in fact, got the same after he addressed the U.S. Congress and urged the U.S. to do more amid the war. Zelensky made references to the Pearl Harbor. The 9/11 also reiterated his appeal for help in shutting down the Ukrainian airspace.
In fact, he also showed a video of missile strikes on his country's cities and the resulting dead and wounded people. Zelensky urged Biden to be a leader of the world and bring peace. Listen to what he had to say yesterday.
To be the leader of peace. Thank you. Slava Ukraini. Today, it's not enough to be the leader of the nation, to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace. Peace in your country doesn't depend anymore only on you and your people. It depends on those next to you, on those who are strong. Strong doesn't mean weak. Strong is brave and ready to fight for the life of his citizens and citizens of the world, for human rights, for freedom, for the right to live decently and to die when your time comes, and not when it's wanted by someone else, by your neighbor.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that their military operations in Ukraine have been a success and West sanctions have failed.
Now, while claiming that they don't intend to occupy Ukraine, Putin added that they won't allow Ukraine to be a springboard to threaten Russia.
So we have exerted all ways to resolve the matter peacefully. The problem that occurred not by our fault, and in this regard, we were forced to launch this special military operation. The Russian troops near Kiev, near other Ukrainian cities, has nothing to do with our intention to occupy the country. That's not our objective.
The Russian efforts to bring down Kiev was met with a strong resistance from the Ukrainian troops. The 64-kilometer-long Russian military convoy remained stalled outside the capital city. And my colleague Pradeep Datta is bringing us this report on Ukraine's strength against the mighty Russian army.
Russia's attempt to move tank regiment from eastern approaches have failed so far. They have been mauled badly while these tanks were slowly rumbling from highway towards Kyiv. We have seen that the biggest tactical blunder that was committed by Russians was that most of these tanks were bunched together, because of which they became sitting ducks for Ukrainian drones and artillery. That's one of the reasons that several of their tanks were destroyed while on their way to Kyiv. Meanwhile, you can see how Ukrainians have strengthened their physical defenses. They have kept these hedgehogs. They have placed these cemented blocks. They are already, men can be seen filling these sandbags throughout day so that they can prevent movement of Russian troops inside Kyiv city. Not only that, they have also kept anti-tank obstacles placed at several places. The idea is not to allow them enter here, create as many stumbling blocks as they can so that they can prevent Russian troops from coming into this side. It's after 3 weeks we have seen that still they have not achieved their target. They have failed miserably, Russians. And Ukrainians are fighting this war smartly. If we compare it with Russia, on one hand, the Russian army seems to be overstretched. On the other hand, if you look at the Ukrainian forces, they are trying to ambush them in small number and inflict maximum casualty.
Now, amid the inflation worries, the U.S. Federal Reserve has hiked interest rates for the first time since 2018. Inflation is at a 40-year high in the United States, and acknowledging the risks posed by the war in Ukraine, the Fed, in fact, announced a 0.25 points hike in the benchmark interest rate.
In fact, in a statement, the Federal Open Market, in fact, said that they said that the fallout from the war in Ukraine is likely to create additional upward and pressure on inflation and also could weigh in heavily on economic activity.